which is why I decided to step in. So I am Akash, and I am currently the Joint Secretary and Computer Society Chair of JOSP. And I have been exploring and contributing to open source pretty much since my freshman year. It started with Hacktoberfest, and the big break came in this year in the form of C4GT or Code for Government Tech, which I think Ansh will be covering here today as well. I completely understand it though if none of you have heard about C4GT before. So to keep it short, you can think of it as an Indian version of GSOC that has the same level of recognition, if not more, than the Smart India Hackathon. So I got to meet a lot of great people there, and one of them is here with us today. Ansh had been a C4GT mentee way back in 2022, and he featured as an angel mentor this year as well. I had the privilege of attending 2 of his skill development sessions. And it is very hard to describe him because if you go through his LinkedIn, you can probably call him the master of all trades because he has been an open source contributor, mentor. He has done research internships at IISc, MITEX, then interned as a software developer at LinkedIn as well, worked on blockchain and whatnot. So we are lucky to have you here with us today, Ansh. And with that, I'll pass it over to you.
Thanks, Akash. Am I audible to everyone? I'm audible, right? Okay. Cool. So, thank you for the introduction, Akash. And I met Akash through C4GT itself. He reached out to me on LinkedIn, and I had taken, as he said, I had taken 2 sessions for the C4GT contributors there as well. So, giving you a very rough idea about C4GT, it stands for Code for GovTech. It started back in 2022, so it's we had the third year of C4GT this year, and essentially it's GSOC, but the projects which you get in GSOC are mostly mostly open source companies, but in case of C4GT, they are all government related projects. So if you've heard about ABHA, you would have heard about the National Digital Stack, all the projects which you have there, Shiksha. So all of these huge projects used by crores of Indians on a daily basis, those are the ones which come on C4GT. So you really get to make an impact at scale. I was lucky enough to be one of the first 13 contributors selected in the first cohort. And like that was honestly the beginning of all the internships which I have done after that. So I got into LinkedIn after that, MyTax after that. So that honestly formed the foundation for most of the work that I've done coming forward. So we'll talk about it afterwards. But today's session essentially is going to be about how to get into open source. I was told that the target audience is mostly first and second year students, but I'm sure that even if you have like more advanced people, even they'll take away something from this, I hope. So I'm not a huge fan of presentations, but I've created one for you guys. So let me just share my screen. Just let me know, Akash, if it's visible.
Yep, it is.
Okay, awesome. So we'll just skim through the non-essential parts very quickly. I'm assuming that if you're attending this, you already know what open source is, what it stands for. So first of all, a quick introduction. I think Akash already covered almost all of it. Right now, I'm doing a master's from IIT Kharagpur, and I'm right now in Hyderabad. I'm working with a company known as Skyroot Aerospace, and I'm working on creating real-time operating systems and AI-based systems for them. So it's a software-based role, but in the rocket company. So I'm getting to see and understand how rockets are built and all that. So overall, a dynamic internship, I would say. But yeah, that's almost all about me. Coming to open source, I think you guys already know what open source is all about. So you have 2 types of code bases, right? So you have proprietary code bases and you have open source code bases. Proprietary is like Windows, the one that Microsoft has. You cannot really look into the code, you cannot modify anything and all that. But if we have Linux users here, they would know that you can essentially change everything on Linux. Right now, the computer which I'm using, the laptop I'm using, that's running on Windows, but my personal computer runs on Linux, right? And open source itself gives you the ability to modify the code or fix problems, add features, remove bugs, and do all of those to products which you actually use in real life. You look at WinZip. I guess a lot of you must have used WinZip. Even that's open source. So a lot of open source tools out there which are making life easier for a lot of people. And almost 70 to 80% of all SaaS products which you see out there. mm, since you guys are in college, you would have probably used things like image to PDF generators and PDF, converting your answer sheets to PDFs, and all that. So all of those mostly work on open source projects and all of that. So OSS forms a very crucial part. In fact, even companies which are very, very proprietary, like Goldman Sachs, Microsoft, JP Morgan, even investment banking firms which try to be very secretive, also internally use a lot of open source projects for their frameworks, all the frameworks which they use. So that's a very small introduction to open source. Why open source? It's a long list. I could go on and on, but primarily number one is accelerated learning. So you get to collaborate with a lot of people and you get to meet a lot of people. For example, the C4GT mentorship, which Akash just talked about. So every year, usually we select around 100 people to get into C4GT. We have around the same number of projects, around 100 projects, and every and therefore around every project is around 1 or 2 mentors, so around 150 mentors across 100 projects. So the total ecosystem every single year grows by roughly 250 to 300 people, and you get to network across all of these people who are like really talented in their respective fields. So you get to learn a lot. In most cases, if you look at an open source project, you would probably not know each and every tech stack that goes into it. So you might know, let's say 50-60% of the tech stack, but the rest 40% might be new to you or alien to you. So but then the community helps you to learn it and pick it up really quick, and that's how learning gets faster. Instant credibility. So honestly, if you just send your GitHub profile to I judge a lot of people based on their GitHub profiles. So just one single glance at it tells me how how good they are at understanding code bases and contributing to code bases which they have not built, right? It's a different thing to be able to contribute to your own code base versus the ability to contribute to, let's say, a code base made by multiple contributors, let's say a separate organization which has its own set of rules and regulations. Do you have the ability to understand the processes which that particular organization uses to push out code and then contribute accordingly? It's a different game altogether. Global collaboration, as I said, you get to know a lot of people, you get to meet a lot of people, and since it's all online, you don't have any geographical boundaries on the type of people you get to meet. I've personally met a lot of people from the Netherlands and a lot of people from Europe working on a lot of open source projects, and it, it depends honestly on how active the open source projects is. Some open source projects which are like really active, you can take the example of TensorFlow, or you can take the example of Open Food Facts. These are organizations which are super active, and therefore collaboration is much more fruitful in these organizations. We'll cover that moving forward. Moving on, real impact and real users. So of course, open source, whatever you push to open source would be used by real people. So they'll be downloading the libraries. They'll be, let's say, if you even make a small patch to Linux, right? So you automatically push code out to millions, if not billions of users and billions of machines out there. So real impact and real users. Moving forward, so as I said, I'm not a huge fan of presentation, so I'll be moving on to actually showing you a few resources on how to get started, and yeah, let's just see what all we're going to cover. But before we move to that, before we move to actually understanding how to contribute to open source, I want you guys to understand and learn two major skills. I call these auxiliary skills, which I feel help people a lot, not just from an open source point of view, but being computer science engineers or software engineers, these two things you should probably know really well. Number one is learn to type fast. I've seen this as a huge problem among a lot of my peers. Even here at IIT Kharagpur, I see this a lot. A lot of people are not really comfortable typing fast, and so what happens is average speed for an untrained hand is about 35 to 40 words per minute. It's way too slow, and therefore, if you're trying to learn something, or if you're coding iterative process. You type something out, you erase it, then you type something out again, you test it, doesn't work, erase it again, start from scratch. So it usually involves a lot of typing. So better be good at it. Usually 75 to 85 words per minute is a good range, and you can easily use sites like KeyBR and Monkey Type to increase your speed. It hardly takes any time. Like I think I started with around 35 words per minute. 2 to 3 months, I was at an average of around 100. So it's very very easy. It's called touch typing, so you can search for it. So learn touch typing. It will not take a lot of time. Second thing is learn to learn fast. I think a lot of people, they decide that okay, I want to start with, let's say, data science, but then they create a roadmap for like 6 months, 3 months down the line. I think I personally think that's a bit too much, and you should honestly learn how to learn fast. Because let's say tomorrow you get in contact with a mentor from an open source organization, and you have this opportunity to really work with the open source organization, contribute to it, but then you realize that okay, I don't know, let's say 30% or 40% of the tech stack. Now if you give that person a 6-month roadmap saying that over the next 6 months I'm going to learn 30% of this and I'll get back to you, that's not going to work out in most cases, right? So people want people who can learn fast. And so if you look at the flow chart, this is how I personally approach learning anything new. So multiple, you have programming languages, that is like the basic layer, and multiple programming languages are combined to create a framework, and then multiple frameworks combine to form a tech stack, right? So if you take the example of tech stack, you could probably, I'll take the most common one, I'll take MERN stack. Okay, it's made up of multiple frameworks. So you React.js, it's a framework. You use Mongoose as a wrapper on top of MongoDB, that's a framework. So you have multiple frameworks using which a tech stack is formed, and a particular framework would have multiple programming languages involved in it. So in React, you don't just have JavaScript, you also have HTML, you also need to have knowledge of CSS. So multiple languages or multiple scripting languages to form a framework. So if you're trying to target a programming language, it should ideally not take more than 2 days. If you already know how to program in one language, usually C++ is already taught to you in like second or third semester of college. So if you already know how to code in C++, then it should be a cakewalk to learn any other programming language. Because what I do in these 2 days, the first day I pick up a YouTube playlist with around like 30-minute long videos, 20-30 videos or so, and I just go through these videos one by one. At the end of the day, the number of constructs which you find in every programming language is going to be the same. Every programming language is going to have a if else statement, for loop, switch cases, the same error handling, same API calls, functions, scope, and all that. Some very 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 basic things are going to be common across all programming languages. Yes, some advanced concepts might differ, but then you'll hardly use them. So you might as well learn them on the fly while you're working on it. So if I have to take an example, if you already know C++ and you want to go ahead and learn Golang, then Golang is nothing but C++ with really good concurrency. Similarly, if you want to learn Rust, Rust is nothing but C++ with really good memory protection. So it shouldn't be that difficult. So you spend the first day learning the basic construct, and then you spend the second day creating some really basic projects using that programming language, and you get a hang of it. Then honestly, I personally don't think that you need anything else to go ahead and start contributing to projects. So it's a 2-day work. Frameworks, honestly, you can do it in one day. A framework is nothing but a very specific way to use a programming language. So you have a bunch of boilerplate code which has been written in a particular programming language, and you just need to understand how to use that boilerplate code as a black box. So I would suggest don't take much time when you're trying to learn a framework. Okay, maybe one day is a bit too fast. You can maybe take 2 days, but I don't think it should take more time than that. and tech stack itself. So whenever you want to learn a tech stack, ideally break it down into multiple frameworks which you want to understand, and then break the frameworks down into programming languages. That is usually how I personally approach learning. So yeah, these were the two auxiliary skills which I wanted you guys to take a look at. Coming to the actual thing regarding open source software, so we'll look at two angles to contributing to open source. Number one is as a contributor. So that is what I've been doing for a long time. That is what Akash did at DMP, and that's one. Number two is contributing to open source as an organization. So as a contributor, you will be a small part of a large open source project. As an organization, it will be kind of your job to create open source projects in which other people can come in and contribute to. And ideally, if you're creating an organization, it should have like a particular theme. It should solve a particular use case and all that. We'll come to that afterwards. Let's start with how do we get started as a contributor. So I think Akash already answered this question quite well. Hacktoberfest, right? I think a lot of people start with Hacktoberfest, and I personally also started with Hacktoberfest itself. In fact, I had to give Hacktoberfest 2 times to really get started into OSS. I gave it once. I got the T-shirt and then I left Hacktoberfest. Then I gave it again second time, and after that, I really wanted to get into open source. So that's when I started. So if you want to get started, I think these programs are really good. You have Hacktoberfest, that's just one of them. You also have a lot of winter of codes and summer of codes, right? So let's not target Google summer of code right now, but you can target summer of codes which are hosted by other universities or other colleges. So I know that Kharagpur, IIT Kharagpur hosts this thing called KWalk or Kharagpur Winter of Code. I know that IIT Patna hosts something called NJAC. That's their Winter of Code. So multiple universities and multiple colleges have their own open source events. So you should probably try to go ahead and contribute to these. I think that's a very good place to start to contribute. Now, contributions can be in 3 major ways. You can either contribute to documentation, you can either contribute to code, or you can do something known as triaging. Okay, I don't think a lot of people understand what triaging means. I'll just leave the presentation for a moment, and I'll try to show it to you guys on actual open source projects, right? How this works. So in terms of ways to contribute, I think documentation is clear, right? So let's open up a good open source project. Let's see TensorFlow. Okay. So this is a TensorFlow repository, one of the best open source projects out there. I think it has around 200K stars on GitHub as well. So documentation contributions essentially mean, so this is documentation, right? Whatever you see here is documentation. So it can either be the documentation which is available on their GitHub repository in the form of README. So you can either contribute to these. Easiest way is go to issues and you will have multiple tags available. So if you go to labels, one second. Yeah, if you go to labels, I think you should be able to search by docs. Yes, so this is docs feature, right? So almost every open source organization would have a separate label for documentation related issues. So you can always filter them out using this label. Do we have any? So all of these are document related issues. So you can click on any one of them and understand what the issue is, and then go ahead and contribute relevant documentation. Now in documentation also there are certain levels of complexity. If let's say you just had to contribute to this file, like let's say you found a issue in the readme.md file and you want to contribute to this. So this is like really easy because the entire thing is in the code itself. You don't really have to build something separately, or you don't have to set it up locally, nothing like that. You just download, you just clone the repository, you make the changes, you raise a PR as per the code of conduct, as per the requirements of TensorFlow, right? But sometimes what happens, if I go to tensorflow.org, they have this website as well. So if I go to learn here and I go to guide, so this is also TensorFlow documentation, right? But then contributing to this is slightly more difficult because you will have to set up this entire thing locally. So you'll have to build this locally. There are a lot of open source documentation tools. I'm not sure which one they've used for this. This might be a custom built documentation site, but a lot of sites use something called Docusaurus. Some of them use Sphinx. So there are a lot of document generators, so which can create documentation like this. So in such cases, it might be slightly more complex to contribute to documentation because you'll have to not just clone it locally, you'll have to set it up, build the documentation locally, and then raise a PR. So just two different things, but in general documentation is considered to be one of the easiest ways to get started with contributions to open source. This is number one. Number two is code based contributions. So I don't think I need to talk a lot about code based contributions because honestly, you just go to issues and anything other than documentation is a code based bug, right? So you can click on any of the issues. Let's just see what we have here. So you will have a bunch of, so you will, in most cases you will have error logs as to what the error is and what code produced that error and the system configuration on which that error was found. So these guys have not included the system configuration, but usually you will have it. Yeah, so you have at least versioning or something, some information that would allow you to reproduce this bug on your system if required. So code contributions, in most cases you will find comments on them. So this was raised yesterday, so probably that is why we are not getting any comments. But if you look at most of the issues, you will be able to see some or the other comments on them. So these comments are very useful to understand where exactly the problem lies, and then you will have to go through the entire code base, understand the entire code base, and then propose a potential solution to the assignees. So I'll give you an example for that also. That is number one. Now if I show you HCX. Yes. So if I go to issues here, let's open one of them. In most cases, issues are going to be very, very detailed, right? So this is how a detailed issue looks like. In most open source organizations which follow best practices, they're called OpenSSF best practices. You can check that out as well. But in most such organizations, you will have a very clean issue ticket raised. And the issue ticket is supposed to be self-contained. So you can figure out everything about the issue just by looking at the ticket itself. This is step one. Once you see the issue, you can now decide if you want to go for a document-based contribution or code-based contribution, or if you want to do triages. One good resource is Good First Issues. I'm not sure if you guys have taken a look at this before. So these are all beginner friendly issues which you can go to today and contribute to. So initially when I was getting started, I used this a lot to just find friendly repositories. A lot of repositories have like not so friendly maintainers who'll probably not like it if you make mistakes in the way you raise PRs. But then a lot of organizations also exist which are very friendly and they'll sort of handhold you to contributions. So you can find all of them here, most of them here. And yeah, this is one. Second thing is called triaging. And as I said, not a lot of people know what triaging is. So triaging essentially means you're not contributing anything in terms of code or documentation. All you try to do is you try to help solve the problem. Okay. So if I take an example for triaging, let's go to TensorFlow only. Right. So if you look at a really mature issue as in something that has been going on for quite some time now, and if you scroll down a bit, you'll be able to see a lot of comments, right? So you have this major issue. This is the major issue ticket, and then if you scroll down, there are people who have commented here, right? So this is the part of triaging. So what you essentially do, you try to reproduce this issue on your system, okay? And whatever result you get, you sort of dump it here while trying to reproduce that particular bug. Now, what this does is it allows future contributors to understand if this is a system specific issue, that was someone able to fix this using some workaround, was someone able to uh, use a different version of a library, and did that fix the issue. So it allows them to trace it back and do root cause analysis. Otherwise, whatever these guys have done here, a single contributor would have to do it on his own machine to realize all of this information. So you're not contributing anything directly to the code base, but you're helping some future contributor to come in and really understand what the root cause of that particular issue is, and then fix it essentially. So this is called triaging. So if you want to contribute to open source, these are the three major ways. You either contribute in terms of documentation, you either contribute in terms of code, or you contribute in terms of triaging. For document-based contributions, you have Google Summer of Document. I think everyone knows about it. That is probably the only paid documentation related contributions that I've heard about. You might find some documentation related fellowships on LFX as well, the Linux Foundation Fellowship. So even they have a few projects which like sort of pay you as a fellow to come on board and write documentation for them. But it's less. Most of them are focused around code-based contributions because they're complex and they take time. Usually, a code-based contribution scheme would take like 3 months. A fellowship like that would take 3 months. So, yeah. Next thing is, I think we have covered this. So the first thing, how to get started, ways to contribute, we have covered already, right? So we have 3 ways to contribute. If you want to find out which organization you want to contribute to, go to that Good First Issues Wala site, choose a random organization which you can actually filter out based on your tech stack. So let's say you know Python, then go ahead and filter out based on Python, and then choose one particular organization and stick to it for a while. I've seen a lot of people, they just jump between open source organizations without really understanding any of them. You need to at least give it just give it 10 hours and just try to understand how the community works, how things really work there. And then if you really think that, okay, I'm unable to contribute or I'm unable to understand how the code base works, only then jump to a new open source organization. If you keep jumping, it's difficult to lock in on one project. Coming to best practices. So again, this is going to be like super short. If you again go back here, in a lot of cases, you will be able to find it in the README itself. So best practices in the sense, there are a few things which every organization works on. You would have PRs, you would have pull requests, you would have issues. These are the 2 main things, and you would have commits. So every open source organization would have their own template for a pull request. They would have their own template for issues, and they would have their own template for commits. Okay, commits are usually simple. Most of the open source organizations use something called what was the name? Conventional commits, semantic commits. Yes, it's called semantic commits. So you should ideally learn how semantic commits work. You have this site called conventional commits, and it goes through how you should name your commit messages. Now, why this is important is because if you go through any major open source organization, you will see that with every software release, they also release a file called changelog, and the changelog has all the details regarding all the things which has changed from like the previous version to this new version. And it's very difficult to create that changelog by hand. So if you use this particular format for writing the commits, you have particular softwares that can automatically parse all these commits and create change logs out of it. So most of them will use conventional commits or semantic commits for writing commit messages. That is it. You don't have a lot of complexity on how to write commits. That this is easy enough. Coming to how to write issues and how to raise issues, how to structure your issue, and how to structure your PR. So again, all the best open source softwares or all the open source organizations out there have their own templates to use. So you see this, right? .github. So if you go to .github, you will be able to see all the templates. So issue template, these are the templates which are used for raising all the issues which you have, right? You can either go through these, or you can simply go to issues, create a new issue, and you will be able to see all the available templates, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you have these 5 different types of templates which you can create for this organization. Similarly, if you go to PR, in most cases you will be able to see a template here, but if you do not see a template, then it is wise not to go ahead and blindly open a pull request. If you don't follow their conventions, they will usually not even review the PR. They will not even take a look at it. So it's better if you go to code and if you go to readme. So you'll be able to see all of these here, right? So these 5 are important things. Most important is readme. Of course, it will tell you how to set up the entire project and whatever you need to know. Then you have code of conduct. Not very important. Every open source repository follows the same code of conduct, right? So it's a copy pasted code of conduct, so nothing new there. Contributing is another important thing because it will tell you everything about how the organization works. So it will tell you about the issue templates. It will tell you about how to create a pull request. It will also tell you about how to merge, how merging works. So there are actually various open source Git workflows, right? That brings me to the point that please make sure that you understand Git really well. There are not a lot of things which you need to understand. A few commands: git add, git commit, git checkout for different branches, git rebase for flattening the commit list, git remove, revert, unlist, stage. So you have a few such commands related to git. There are like multiple YouTube videos on this. If you want, I can share one with Akash and he can share it with you guys as well. So yeah, coming to contributing guidelines, if you see, this is how they work on their PR, right? This is how TensorFlow works on their PR. A lot of large open source organizations like TensorFlow, Kubernetes, take some other organization like for Microsoft Azure. The Azure also has open source SDKs. So for most of them, you will find this contributor license agreement. And this is because whatever code you contribute, you're essentially giving the organization, which is Google in this case, the right to package it and sell it as a product or like use it as a product. So contributor license agreement means whatever you're contributing means that you will be given credit, but then you don't have any right over the code itself, right? So a lot of organizations do this where you have to sign this CLA before your PR can be merged. A lot of organizations also have particular styles for contributing. So for example, if you're using Python, it has to be compliant with some indentation scheme, or maybe it should have 4 tabs. Some projects would use 2 tabs for indentation. So it depends. It depends from organization to organization. You'll find all of it in contributing guidelines, right? So you have how to open a new PR. You have information about CLA, how to contribute code, code contribution guidelines and standards. So are there any particular ways you need to structure your code before they accept it? Is there a particular linter that you need to use for a particular language for it to be accepted? And then the license. Usually nobody looks at license. If you're a contributor, license doesn't really mean a lot to you. You don't have to take a look at license too much. Yes, you have to understand licenses if you're an organization. So if you have an open source organization, that is probably when you want to really sit down and take a look at the different types of licenses available for open source and choose one accordingly. So yeah, this is it in terms of best practices. Always go through the contributing guidelines of the associated open source project before contributing to it. It will teach you how to open pull requests. It will teach you how to create a new issue, and it is also going to teach you code linting, how to set up code linters locally, what the review process is, and everything, right? So it will teach you everything. Okay. So we looked at ways to contribute, the 3 ways to contribute. We looked at best practices. Coming to ways to network and get noticed. So in most cases, every major open source organization would also have a dedicated channel. In fact, I think if you go to Google Summer of Code, organizations, this is the wrong GSOC site. Yeah, if you click on any of them, let's say I go with Django. Yeah, so you can see that you have a blog and you have a mailing list or a forum. Almost every open source project would have a mailing list, but a lot of them would also have other channels for communication. So they would have like a Slack channel. A lot of them have Slack channels, by the way. A lot of them would have an Element channel. I don't know if you've heard about Matrix. It's a social network, again, Matrix, decentralized social networks, and a lot of open source organizations use Matrix. A lot of them use Glitter. Glitter is another open source. Glitter. Yeah, so a lot of them use Glitter as a social media app for communicating between open source teams, right? So you can check these out. So always, whenever, and almost all of them, if you go to this Open Fruit Bats, most open source organizations would also conduct regular meetings. I think this is a better example. So there's an organization called Meshri. And in fact, actually, if any one of you is working on cloud, and if you want the easiest way to get into open source, it's probably Meshri. Like the organization is great. Plus, you can, I'll make you understand after a while, but the organization is great and it's very easy to get into it. So they have recurring meetings every weekly or something, and I think you'll find it somewhere. Yeah, so you can watch the community recordings, you can join the community forum, and you can take a look at the community calendar. So if you look at the community calendar, you will see a bunch of I think you'll have to take access to it. Yeah, but you'll be able to see a bunch of meetings, right? And you can join any of these meetings. I think they have 3 to 4 meetings every week for multiple teams. So when an open source organization is very big, they divide themselves into small teams. So one team will take care of the main product, one team will take care of the website, one will take care of DevOps, one will take care of administration. So they'll divide it into teams. Every team would then have its own dedicated meeting time. So let's say in a week, the website team will meet twice a week. Similarly, every team will have their own schedule for meetings. So whichever team you are interested in, you can go ahead and join those calls. And it's very helpful because not a lot of people do it. When I've joined a lot of their calls, and the strength is never more than 10. So it's usually very, very easy to get recognized because the maintainer is always there. The most number of contributions is done by the maintainer, of course, and the most active contributors will also be there among those 10 people. And then when you go there, you switch on your camera and you talk to this bunch of folks. It's really helpful for them to understand that, okay, we have this person who's like really, really interested in contributing to this particular project, and we should probably give him a shot. So you will get a lot of unfair advantage over other people who are not attending these meetings, and it's probably the easiest way to get noticed and start contributing to any open source projects. It's not just true for Meshri. You have other open source projects called, like, you have Open Food Facts. I'll make a list of it and I'll share again. But almost every major open source project would have meetings like this, and they would have the ability, and you would have the ability to contribute to them and join their meetings. So that's probably the best way to network and get noticed. I've noticed that a lot of open source folks are also very active on Twitter. So probably Twitter is also a great platform to connect with them. Send them a message saying that, I'm really interested in this particular open source project, and I've seen that you're a contributor or a mentor in this project, or a maintainer of this project. Could you tell me how to start, or could you guide me? So usually they're very helpful, and they'll help you out with starting with the open source project, right? Yeah, that's done. How to target and become a part of courses organization. So I already mentioned this, right? So you just go ahead, you join these meetings. They're probably the easiest way to get into an open source organization and get recognized. Or if they have a dedicated channel, like a Slack channel or a Glitter channel, or some other channel, there you go ahead and you DM them, right? You DM them and you make sure that you can show it to them that you're really passionate about the project. Don't go unprepared. At least have a rough idea of how the project works. At least have a rough idea of how the architecture works, how the data flows through the project. Then go to them, ask them a question, or ask them to help you out with a particular issue which you're trying to solve. So it'll be easy. And honestly speaking, I've tried a lot of ways to get into open source organizations. This is probably the easiest way to get into or get selected into any open source organization. Coming to how to grow as an open source contributor, I think the only way you can do that is by helping people. And whenever you see a question posted on the Slack channel, answer it. Whenever you see that there's a meeting happening, join it. Don't be shy. Don't just switch off your camera and sit there. किसी कोने में meeting में, don't do that. Open up, speak up, and make sure that you help people out. The more people you help, the more people will know you, and the more people know you, the more opportunities you'll get. So it's the same thing as networking. So networking happens the same everywhere, whether you're doing it on LinkedIn or you're doing it as an open source contributor. So nothing much there. Coming to an organization, honestly, I don't think it's a great idea to start an organization very early, because you should probably first understand how these organizations work at their core. So probably do an internship, do a fellowship for a open source organization, or maybe contribute to an open source organization, talk to its maintainers, understand how things work there, and maybe only then go ahead and actually consider opening up an open source organization. Most open source organizations are dead. They don't work, and that is primarily because a lack of focus. So they're not focusing on a particular problem statement, and a lack of active contributors. It's very, very difficult to maintain a steady flow of contributors to come and contribute to your open source organization. If you want to scale it, so I've been trying to figure out how to run my own open source organization for a while now. I think finally I've come to understand, after working across all these organizations, how an actual open source organization works. And I think the easiest way is to probably pitch your open source organization in two places. Number one, if you have an open source event happening, like as I said, you have KWalk, GSOC, you have all of these events happening, right? So pitch your organization as a host organization for those events. In terms of setting up an open source organization, it's not difficult. You just go to it's super easy. You just go here, you go to your profile image, you go to organizations. So these are all the organizations that I'm currently a part of, and you just click on new organization, and then it's easy. Like, you just fill everything out, choose the free plan. It has everything that you need to get started. and you can create your organization in like what 10-15 minutes. But the actual difficult part is to actually scale it, honestly, because if you don't have active contributors, there's just so much you can do about it, right? uh, for me, I've tried to pitch my organization in Hacktoberfest. I think Hacktoberfest is a very good way to give a kickstart to your organization. A lot of people participate in an Hacktoberfest, and they just want to, go ahead and be the first ones to do like 6 PRs. So if you have your organization listed at Hacktoberfest, uh, maybe the quality of PRs might not be that high, but you'll at least get an initial intake of contributors, and then you can double down on it uh, on like for further or future events, right? That's one way. Number two is setting up processes. So as I showed you for TensorFlow, right, you have a code of conduct, you have a particular way to raise PRs, a particular way to raise issues. Everything needs to be defined. So take time to sit down and actually go through the entire process, uh, actually go through the entire all the files that are required. Licenses are very important. How do you want to license your open source organization? You have the MIT license, which open sources everything, like anybody can use it, but you're not liable to. So for example, if I create a software and then someone uses that software to create something like create Terminator, then I'm not liable for that. So that's MIT. You can have a more restrictive license. You can have Apache. You can have I don't even remember most of them, because almost every open source project would use either MIT or Apache. um, some of them use GNU license, so you can always check it out. Like licenses ke liye, there's a separate blog by GitHub itself, so you can check out that blog by GitHub on all the possible licenses for an open source project on GitHub. That's setting up processes. Getting grants or funds is an interesting point. If what you're doing, if you're actually able to get contributors, and if you can set up processes which are like really robust, then GitHub has a grant program called GitHub Open Source Grant, and they pay you somewhere between $10,000 to $20,000 per maintainer. I think, yeah, $10,000 to $20,000 per maintainer to uh, as a non-equity or non-equity grant to your open source foundation or open source organization. So I think that's a really good way of doing it. One of my friends got that. So that's actually for taking care of things like compute costs. So like if you have, let's say, AWS servers running for your service to be online, if you're providing something like that, then in that case they give you that amount of money so that you don't have to burn anything from your side. So that's number one. Plus, this grant would also help you get more contributors, because now you can go ahead and take part in events like GSOC, and maybe get your organization listed under C4GT, and now you have money to actually pay contributors. So whatever said and done, money is definitely an important factor for contributors to get attracted to your organization and contribute to. So that's the thing on grants and funds. Number of grants and funds available out there is really small. I personally have just heard about the GitHub open source grant, so not a lot of opportunity there. So it's quite competitive as well. Uh, Lastly, building a team and keeping things interactive. This comes with all of this. If you can get contributors, if you can have processes on board, and if you can get some sort of funding, then building a team and keeping things interactive won't be really difficult. As a first year or second year student, if you want to get started in open source, my fundamental advice would be go ahead and first of all, I think this year's Hacktoberfest went by, right? So if you cannot contribute to Hacktoberfest, just go ahead and search online Summer of Codes or Winter of Codes and see which ones are still accepting applications. Go ahead, register for them, and then try to contribute to those, right? Almost all of them have leaderboards. Try to get your rank to the top of the leaderboard, be competitive, and be competitive and do that. Once you have done that, you will have an idea of how PR works, how merge requests work, and how that works. Be good at Git. and master one particular tech stack. Usually MERN stack is what most people prefer. So master MERN stack and then try to find open source um, organizations which work with MERN stack. You can either search on GitHub directly, so you can even GitHub has filters for filtering out repositories, or you can check out the Good First Issues link which I just showed you, right? One interesting fact is if you take up a difficult domain, you probably will have less competition. So for Monstack, since a bunch of people do Monstack, it's you'll have a hell lot of competition there. But if you take up something like Android development, or if you take up something like foundational AI development or blockchain development, then in these blocks, even in blockchain development, they have a bunch of people going in now. But if you take something like CUDA development, something very niche, then in such cases your competition goes like very very low, and you can easily get into places. So if you really want to get into a fellowship, an open source fellowship, let's say you take the example of C4GT itself, right? So when I had applied for C4GT, the project which I had chosen or which I had um, sent my proposal for, I hardly knew anything about it. Like back then, I did not know a lot about blockchain. I did not know a lot about cryptography and all that. But as I said, learn how to learn fast. So I got a rough idea of the entire tech stack, how things could work, and I just made a really detailed proposal on it and I sent it off. Not a lot of people targeted that project because it was like really really complex and it was really really difficult. But since it was difficult and since not a lot of people targeted it, my chances of getting it increased. So if you're targeting fellowships, try to go for the toughest projects which you can actually learn while doing it, and you can contribute to it. So you'll have a lot less competition and you'll be able to get in much more easily in such areas. um, it's the same thing. Specialization will always get you to places much faster than what generic skills will take you. So that's about how to get started as a contributor or how to get a fellowship in open source. There are a lot of jobs in open source as well, but again, that honestly varies from open source organization to organization. So sometimes some organizations hire engineers full time as well for open source. Some organizations would also hire people for administrative work. So if you look at Kubernetes, then Kubernetes has a separate admin team where engineers are hired full time for taking care of all the managerial activities happening in the organization. So there are open source jobs also exist, but they're much lesser in number and they pay less. That is true. The major uh, plus point of having open source on your CV is that it tells the recruiter that you actually know how to go through a dense code base created by some random third party and be able to not only understand it but also understand the processes which they were following, understand the coding style which they were following really quick, and then contribute something of value accordingly. And that shows adaptability, that you have the ability to adapt really quick and you have the ability to learn really quick, and that is something which recruiters like. In fact, if you do something like GSOC, I think you get it's called a golden star or something. You get something like that, and when you apply to Google, you have like a upper edge over all candidates who apply to Google. If you crack GSOC. Similarly, C4GT, you get added to a alumni pool of all the previous or ex C4GT contributors, and then moving forward, whatever number one you get to become a mentor for future C4GT folks. You also get direct access to all the GovTech fellowships. So let's say if tomorrow some other government project comes up, then you will get direct access, a direct opportunity to work on it without really having to go through a separate set of interview or anything. So they give you quick access to a lot of opportunities really easily. So yeah, I mean, I think by now it should be clear why open source is really helpful, what really it would help you achieve. Um, that is pretty much it. You don't need a lot to get started. You do need a lot of patience though, because most of the open source projects are fairly dense. So have patience, and I would suggest you get started today itself. The earlier you start, the better. So yeah, that is pretty much it from my side. I hope you got to learn something interesting from this. And honestly, if you have more questions, you can always reach out to me personally. I'd love to help you out in any other way. Baki Akash ko I'll be sharing a list of resources. So if you want to share it with them, it will have like a bunch of things they can refer to for getting into open source. So best practices, commits, and all that. So you can definitely share it with them. So yeah, that's it from my side, Akash. You can take over.
Thanks, Ansh. Like it was a really insightful session, not only for freshers but for me as well. Like I knew the concept of triaging, like I knew the thing, but I didn't know it was called triaging. I'm sure the attendees had a lot to take away, and in case I could see people dropping off in between because again the exams are coming up and everything. So this session will also be posted on YouTube, so you can rewatch it over there. I think Ansh can share his LinkedIn if so
Yeah,
people can reach out there.
sure,
Yeah.
sure. You want me to drop it on the meeting ka chat? Yeah.
Yeah. That would be good.
Okay.
And if anyone has any questions, you can ask.
Yes, yeah. I'm open to questions, guys. Please feel free. Hmm. Okay, I have dropped my LinkedIn. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, got it.
Chance, previously we had received some questions. So one of them was like for your internship at LinkedIn, did your
Mhm.
open source contribution help you in any way? Like, did they come up in discussion with your interviewer or something?
Okay, so not during LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn was the only place where it never came up because they were very focused on DSA, I feel. So in LinkedIn, we had a OA round first, and then after OA round, we directly went to the interview round. Wahan pe bhi they just spoke about the DSA part of it. So never really brought about the open source part of it. It helped me during the job when I was working because a lot of tools there as well are open source. But they never really asked me about my open source contributions. I had it on my resume though, so I don't know if they saw it and they were impressed by it or not. Because I had worked on that went on to be added like a as a part of a national project. So it's like a part of Sunbird ED now, verifiable credentials. So I don't know if that was something which allowed my resume to get shortlisted, but they never really directly asked me about it. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that sense. So seems like we do not have any questions from the session itself, but
Yes.
I'm sure if even if a lot of people couldn't understand a few things today, like if they rewatch this back, this is it's hard to say how densely like packed with information this session was. Okay, so there is a question. Okay.
Some basic contribution but while trying to contribute to organ, yeah, as I said, that is an actual problem. It's like see, it depends on what organization you're contributing to. Most major organizations will definitely have a very dense code base. So ideally what I do personally is I do two things. First thing is understand the flow of data, right? And you'll have a bunch of folders, you'll have a bunch of modules in that entire code. Understand how the data is flowing through it. So you pick up a problem. A problem will usually be you will usually be able to trace it back to a single function in the code base. So that is important. You install it locally, you follow the same steps which that person has written on the issue, so you will understand and you will probably hopefully get the same bug. If you get the same bug, then you can trace it back. So it's normal troubleshooting at the end of the day. You try to trace it back, you look at the stack trace, you try to figure out that okay, this particular function is generating an error due to this particular edge case, and then you go back, and then you find the source file. That is one thing you can do. But if the code base is like way too dense, it can usually take more than like 2-3 days for you to backtrack it. So if you want to speed things up, maybe reach out to a contributor who has already contributed to it. So for TensorFlow, go to any issue which you can see, and then go to a latest issue, and then see and then find out a contributor who has maybe commented on that issue very recently. Then find their LinkedIn, connect with them on LinkedIn, or if they have their email ID there, send them an email, get them on board, and then maybe ask them to walk you through the code flow once. So usually even that works well. Or third way is maybe go to a very old issue which has already been closed, and then try to figure out and try to see what the maintainers have texted on it. So the maintainers would usually give them certain resources that अच्छा यहाँ से देख लो, वहाँ से देख लो, ऐसे करके flow हो रहा है. Try to find similar issues and try to see what maintainers have commented on it. I think even that would help you a lot to understand the data flow through it. Honestly, there's no issue if you directly reach out to contributors. They're more than happy to help you in most cases. So I would suggest easiest way is reach out to contributors. But if you try to figure it out on your own, it will increase your skills as a developer, honestly. So it will make things easier for you. Aage chal ke, if you join an organization, it will be easier for you to backtrack things and make sense of a huge code base without really taking the help of anyone. Open source mein to everyone is willing. Corporate mein people might not be so willing or to give you time. So it's better ki have the skill. But agar nahi ho raha hai, then of course cheezon ko fast karne ke liye you don't have time. Tab jaake it's the same as competitive programming mein editorial dekhe ya na dekhe wala question. You can always take the easy route, but try to develop the skill on your own as well. I think that is. I don't know if that answered your question, yaar. I hope it did.
Yep, I hope it was really well rounded. And open source is always about giving back. Like whoever I have reached out to, they have been more than happy to help. So wherever you get stuck, you can probably ask for help. Even for programs like C4GT, where we have to write proposals, I probably mailed my proposal to, let's say, around 15 people, and they suggested some improvements, which ultimately helped me.
Correct.
Yeah.
Super helpful.
So I guess there are no more questions. Thanks, Shams. It was a really good session. I hope we can have you with us again.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. If anybody has any questions, I have dropped my LinkedIn. Send me a request. We can have a chat on LinkedIn as well. And yeah, I mean, sure, I'm more than happy to do another session whenever, probably after exams when people are free and they can join. So, sure.
Yeah. And I'll definitely share the list of important resources you share with me.
Yeah. Yes. I'll share it with you. You can share it with them as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.